You know, there's a saying, it's better to sit in a boat thinking about God than sitting in a church thinking about fishing.
The Blessing of the Fleet is an annual tradition in Provincetown that began in 1948. The event transcends the boundaries of faith, uniting a fishing community that recognizes the courage and fortitude it takes for fishermen to work on the open sea.
Captain Godino, Justin Avalar, and Arthur Bragg Silver are all the founders of the Portuguese festival in Provincetown, the Blessing of the Fleet. The blessing is a ceremony where, and this goes back hundreds of years in Portugal and in other countries, where they bless the boats. And that is for safety on the water and prosperity.
Well, when you go to church, what you do is you pray for everybody that leaves the pier, because you don't know how many are coming home. When you let those lines go from the pier to go fishing, you didn't know whether you're coming home or not.
It's very important to our culture to have this done, and all of the fishermen would show up when I was a kid. There would just be so many. And they would all walk in the procession and carry their families, or if they happened to have a boat, they would either carry their banner or their father's.
My mother-in-law would be cooking forever. She would make lobster sandwiches, all kinds of sweets. It was like, it took a week at least to prepare all this food, and there must have been like 50 to 100 people on the boat. It was really a great time. It really was, when people all come together and enjoy each other's company.
So the Blessing of the Fleet, for me, was second only to Christmas when I was a kid, and part of that was because it was such a big event when we were younger. Back then, most of the fleet would try to do their annual haul out in the boatyard. So the boats would be in the boatyards, they'd be cleaned up, they'd be painted, the whole fleet would have that fresh look.
For days before, our parents would prepare the food. The men would go and they'd prepare the boat. It had to look pretty. But the women would prepare mounds of food.
We would be making all different kinds of cookies and sandwiches, and for days we cooked and made apricot squares, and they would fish lobster and freeze it ahead of time, and then we would just make mounds and mounds of sandwiches to bring out on the boat.
Blessing of the Fleet, I used to have 250 people at the fisherman's dinner. We used to shuck quahogs and oysters and all day long. And Fred Soterio with a Holiday Inn, they'd make oysters, Rockefeller, raw oysters, Clams Casino. I mean, I had a gang. Of course, all the drinks were free, but we opened shellfish all day long. Trays and trays of shellfish for the appetizers. So it was a great time.
And it was a very family-oriented time where everybody would come to town, all our cousins and our aunts and our uncles, and it was a really big deal.
My earliest memory of fishing was probably coming down the pier waiting for my father to come in. Both my father in my early years, both my father and my stepfather, both actually fished on the same boat. So I can remember being down here. The fleet was much larger than it is now. There was just so much going on that almost every one of us kids was down this pier all the time, and almost every family was related to the fishing industry.
When I was growing up, the blessing was so big that we went and bought a car, brand new vehicle, and they had a raffle at the pier. And that was drawing people like you would not believe. And then they used to have the grease pole, and you had to go out on the grease pole and grab the flag. If you got the flag, you won $25. We used to have dory races. I won one year. Me and Louis Davis. Swimming. All the young kids swim from one pier to the other pier. Diving off of the pier, diving off of the buildings. It was crazy. It was crazy, but my brother Manny did it all the time. Yeah, the dory races, I like that the most. Because I had Louis, who was built like a house, I said, I'm putting you up front. And we started out to about where the breakwater is today, and all the way into where the parking lot is. Wow. And boy, we just took it and we walked away from everybody. I said, that's how it's done, Louis. That's how it's done.
Boy, I never really thought about what the best part of it was. I think it was just, when you're younger, you look at things different. The boats were just so decorated, and all the flags and all the history, and it was the whole group of the town was together. There were a lot of events where the fishermen challenged other fishermen, and it was just a very relaxed and celebratory event, whereas everything else was like, being a kid, our fathers were just working all the time, and they were absent from a lot of things, which I found happen in my own life later on. You gotta fish, so you miss a lot of things, whereas for that week or so, you always knew everybody was going to be around, and it was usually a really good time.
And then Blessing Day was just exciting. It was a big party, a big celebration. Family, friends come from out of town. Even now, that weekend is the homecoming weekend for Provincetown kids. So we always go into town. Even now, we don't have any affiliation with any boats, and there are very few fishing boats left in the community. But we still go into town and celebrate because we run into lots of people that have come home for the weekend.
I went on Sunday and walked down with a parade from St. Peter's. Again, everybody who's following it is doing this and dancing in the street and winding down. You get to the end of the wharf, and it was a gorgeous sunny day, and all the boats were out, all the flags, and the bishop comes with his censer and sprinkles holy water all over everybody, and everybody's singing and dancing and carrying on. It's great. I couldn't believe the joy, the enthusiasm, the love that this community has for this, because this is so Provincetown. It's so real. It's not a theme week. It is a real thing, honoring real people.
I feel that carrying the banners, personally to me, is a very poignant moment and extremely important in honoring these men that built this town, literally built the town. And I would like to see more show up to do that.
In those days, you couldn't even find a place to stand on the pier. There were so many people. Today, you can drive down the pier. It's not there. It's not the way it was. And we used to go up to the church, and the whole front of the church was not all fishermen. And we'd all march down the pier and everything, and Then they said, Ray, we want you to carry the flag because you're Portuguese. So I said, all right, I'll do it. And it was quite an event. That's all I can say.
The boats leave the wharf and they go out into the harbor on the other side of the breakwater. They're aware who the lead boat is. The glutton will come in first. And then after that, everybody's pretty good about just kind of filing, not crowding each other, and coming in to get blessed. I have pictures of the Patricia Marie just loaded with people. Like, you couldn't move. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I was always in the bow. I had my spot. All the pictures of the blessing, you can see me sitting on the bow.
As the Catholic cardinal from Boston bestows his blessing upon each vessel, prayers are whispered on the wind to keep the boats and those who crew them safe. It symbolizes not only a plea for safety and abundance, but also a testament to a deep-rooted connection between faith and the sea.
I love the abundance. That's a beautiful way to put it. I do. And I love keeping the history alive. We still have a fishing fleet. It's smaller, but we have it. We still honor it. The town is full of Portuguese.
I think that even though the fishing community is smaller nowadays, it's still the same community. And we're all still so close.
Well, depending on what people's faith is, the meaning of the blessing is for someone to be looking over you, you know, for a prosperous and safe season. You know, I would actually like to change that a little bit to just a safe season where, you know, when I was a kid, we lost a lot of fishermen out of the port. So and to me, the blessing also signified like remembering those who were lost. And it was a big thing for my family. You know, the whole community was basically Catholic, and it was a huge event.
This year is going to be the first year that the banners of the names of the lost will be carried. All of the men, women, and children lost at sea from Provincetown are being put on banners by the Fishermen's Memorial Foundation, and they will be carried in the procession for the first time this year.
You know, like I said before, we did have significant loss. You know, the Captain Bill and the Patricia Marie had gone down in my early childhood, and then with the Victory 2, my father was friends with all them. He'd actually been fishing on the boat and was injured right before it, so, you know, it was a huge loss.
I think it's a sign of respect for those that came before us, that created this industry, that worked their butts off to support their families and build this town. And I think it's such a small thing to do, to honor them, is to carry their flags of their boats so that their boats are not forgotten.
No, the blessing meant a big deal, it really did. I mean, it was like a vacation, a day of a vacation where everybody rested. And it was nice.
It informed so many things. There were wharves the whole length of town at one point. And in the yards facing the water, there were cod drying racks. And it makes me sad, A, that the wharves are gone, but B, that industry just doesn't exist anymore.
Actually, it's kind of a depressing time of the year for me, to tell you the truth, the blessing of the fleet now, because a lot of the guys that I know are gone, you know, the boats are gone, everything's gone, you know.
It's a somber occasion because it's a time for us to remember our heritage, but it's also a time to remember all the happy memories and how blessed we were to grow up in such a place where we all gathered for one weekend.
In my particular case, you know, I missed out on a lot. I've said this before with my family, and it's like they make a lot of sacrifices just with the captains and the crews not being around. So for all the things you miss and all the events that you miss and everything, it's that one time that maybe you can give it back to your community and to your family. You know, like I have a lot of retired fishermen that come out with us, family members that used to fish. We got a lot of young kids usually, you know, and it kind of like, in a nutshell, it encompasses a little bit of what Provincetown used to be, a little bit about what the Provincetown fishing fleet is now, and a little bit of what your family sacrifices are for you being away and being on the sea.